you sure went out of your way to get the Donald Trump haircut if your barber was from Legoland. Nobody played Sonic the Hedgehog and thought, this is fun, but I'd have more fun if I knew Sonic had 2 gay biracial dads. Which really makes me wonder how successful this channel would be if I looked like Lauren Chen, or the Daily Wire's Brett Cooper, or basically anything other than a bootleg Sub-Zero. Because when I'm not busy bringing dishonor to the Lin Kuei clan, this channel is actually doing pretty good, but thumbnail design would be really simplified, as this is infinitely more clickable than this. 2023 was a wild year, so I want to thank the nearly 500,000 YouTube viewers that subscribe to know more about what's really going on in the world through these concise but lighthearted videos. So hopefully you'll enjoy watching a recap of all the best roasts of unemployed behaviors, actually evil politicians, and most importantly, myself, as I gradually lose my battle with humility throughout 2023.
Don't call us thugs though. Don't call us thugs. Don't call us thugs. I'll call you anything. I didn't drink.
Do it. Call me a right now. Bro, I'll beat your myself.
Do it.
Hold
Do
this
it.
camera.
Do it.
Call me
Do
a right now.
Do
I'll
it.
beat your
Go ahead.
Call me. I ain't touch you, my boy.
Now.
I ain't touch you.
Stick your.
How dare you call me a thug? I'm only doing exactly what a thug would do in this very situation. And what's going on here? Is this old man Harry Potter, where he can walk by and mutter Tupacchio, and suddenly these 3 introverted medical students need to start jumping old people in a restaurant? I don't think that's how this works. Because let's call it for what it is. This trend of fatherless behavior on social media is just the male version of daddy issues. Because watch any of these social media clout chasing videos online, they all scream, please, I'm becoming useless, somebody discipline me. And you heard it here first. Once prank content starts getting identified as daddy issues, it'll disappear overnight. So here we have more smooth brain cinema of someone that thinks they'll become internet famous by streaming their unemployed behaviors in Asian countries. But he was simply never expecting that on a Japanese subway, he'd encounter the rare rooftop Korean from Texas.
What do you mean?
Where are you from? Yeah, you're being obnoxious.
You know what we do to you?
What do you do?
Korean war, North Korean war, you know what we did to you?
So there's a very subtle thing that Yeehaw Opa is doing here, because shortly after he was streaming online and got randomly smacked.
Whoa, what the? Chill out.
And later had water thrown on him.
Like they threw water on me. Hey, chill out. Hey, chill out, bro. Me, you know nothing, me, you heard?
If there's one persona that I despise the most, it's the people that are what I call gangster fluid, where at sometimes they act bold and in your face like they're from the hood, but then in the next moment they're crying on livestream about someone throwing water on them. I'm sorry, where in the G-code does Tupac talk about crying to the police that you got wet? So Kenzo's crew of karate killers finally finds the fatherless frat house.
So they don't want to fight or talk?
Where their intimidation tactics somewhat differ from Western standards. Now what a sad realization this moment must be for him. All he wanted to do is get popular online and maybe make some money for his travels, and somehow that turned into this, where he only gets money from people that want to make a fool out of him in public. Although the coverage is limited, the BBC reports on what started the unrest, where they report the guy shot by police was a delivery driver that played rugby. His education was chaotic, but was going to be an electrician. He was Algerian, that lived with his loving mother, but never knew his father. So maybe that's why he wants to go after girls like this Twitch streamer, Meowko.
We don't like Twitch streamers on K.
Okay, then we are not talking.
And then turn around. Bye-bye, get banned. Get banned. You don't get banned for me, yo. Yeah, you better walk away.
I'm so sorry, guys. Today, I really wanted to have a really great stream.
But finally, he runs into another foreigner that does what his father never could, and shows him that some people have their limits.
Hey, you, whatever, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, nah, man.
All you have to say
Don't
is
grab nothing. Oh.
And curiously, they aren't acting so bold anymore. So sadly, this was 1,000,000% predictable, and at some level, I think the streamers knew this was bound to happen as well. And yet, after all the warnings they received from the authorities, the Yakuza, and other foreigners, they simply could not help themselves, as they literally have nothing else to offer society, other than being this walking, progressive jackpot. Where in places like Las Vegas, there's these slot machines that have jackpots that increase whenever somebody plays, but doesn't win. And with these streamers that do nothing but ruin society, the only draw they have is people patiently waiting to see them find out live. Because the scary part is, how many low-level IRL streamers are out there right now that are literally trying to make a name for themselves in a sea of streaming obscurity by hitting the jackpot that is being Japan's biggest hero since Mechagodzilla. Which makes me come to the conclusion that internet pranks is like OnlyFans, but for talentless idiots. As most people that produce that content never make any money off of it, and with that content floating around the internet forever, they'll likely regret it at some point in time in their life. But just because there's a tiny amount of people that actually find great success with it, they think they have to try it, because if they had talent or weren't an idiot, they would obviously be doing something better with their time. But this is actually AI generated, as apparently they took an actual girl and edited it into someone different. But the most insane part is, this wasn't the only alternate version of her, as AI artists are spawning hundreds of different people. Because yes, it's pretty messed up to take a girl's video online and edit it so it's a more attractive, marketable product. I can only imagine if someone took all my videos, deepfaked me into some busty blonde, then suddenly I found out that Decoy Moist hit 1 million subscribers in only a few months. I'd be upset, but also kinda respect it. At a minor league baseball game between the Long Island Ducks and the Spire City Ghost Hounds, former MLB player Rowdy Reed finishes a double play, but then immediately clocks out and does this.
And something is happening up on the concourse network.
Now, what I truly believe is to blame here is the YouTube comment section, where modern day fans somehow got accustomed to being entertained by something and are immediately able to respond with rancid comments with no real fear of being knocked out by these 200-pound mega athletes that are oftentimes injected full of vials of aggression, but just random internet interactions that make them forget that these aren't just faces on the screen. These guys are the final form of the high school jocks that used to bully them in school, where they previously wouldn't dare say any of this stuff to their face. And I know this to be true because even me, just a regular guy on YouTube, in person, no one really gets in my face to say anything awful. But on YouTube, people are constantly angry at my Asianness, what other Asians have done, and sometimes just irate over me in general. But what's funny is they're furious at me for being conservative, but also enraged at me for being liberal, but also a fake Chinese Australian. But to be honest, looking at other sun bears, like at the Paradise Wildlife Park, they just kinda naturally have that tipsy toddler posture. That is, unless sun bears are just something the zoo industry just fabricated as a cheap way to bolster their attraction numbers. As this isn't the first time we've seen zoos fake their animals. Okay, so maybe that was just footage from the Korean comedy film Secret Zoo back in 2020, but it's not far from what's actually happening in 2023. Where this guy apparently spent $20,000 on building a fake border collie suit to live his life as a dog. But YouTuber Shoeonhead presents an interesting argument, where he may just be adjusting to the current dating meta, as we have seen people spend $100,000 on making themselves slightly taller, so with the insane reality where women have been caught doing adult things with dogs, and inversely women pretending to be dogs, to apparently make nearly $900,000 annually. So there is apparently a thriving dating community based on doghood. And let's be clear, wearing costumes to date above your pay grade is nothing new.
On Halloween, where we can hide our bodies in bulky costumes.
So I never want to be too judgmental on what consenting adults want to do in their private lives. Sunbays becoming sun bears, billionaires becoming Sharpays. I don't know, maybe this is just my millennial status showing, and I'm just not hip with the times. Because it looks like these costume creatures have thriving social lives, seem to party harder than I've ever done, and get incredibly dialed in when they're at work. This sounds an awful lot like tinfoil hat headspace, but you want to know how we know this to be true? Because China only does it to our youth. While TikTok in America looks like this, Chinese Douyin has their kids learning this. And it's not only mortars, but toy rocket launchers. And how to fully disassemble toy firearms. And no wonder theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking warned us that AI could end mankind back in 2014. And even SpaceX founder Elon Musk believed AI could destroy civilization despite investing in it himself, which is what it always comes down to. There is likely a way to conscientiously develop artificial intelligence so it only benefits mankind. But we live in a world where being first is more important than being right, because all of these eventualities equally terrify me, but I just choose to accept it, because at some point, I think I'll be able to procedurally generate me. 24-hour Decoy voice live streams, sarcastically slamming today's trending stories. Meanwhile, I'm sitting back playing Diablo 4, eating a McFlurry.
And the technology will be so good nobody will even notice. So if you appreciate my concise, light-hearted, completely human commentary, hopefully I have earned your subscription. Then check out my video on the samurai cowboy cops that are taking back Santa Monica.
In Santa Monica, California, Babies Lives Matter protesters square off with Antifa-looking counter-protesters dressed in black bloc until police deploy the Santa Monica Samurai Cowboy Cop Cavalry, a biker guy that apparently got his gang patches straight from Hollywood. And who's that? None other than a time-traveling decoy voice straight from the year 2000 with that old-school camcorder. Now obviously that guy isn't me from the past, but I can't rule out that it's not my son from a distant AI future trying to warn us about something. That's why I'm glad I got my tinfoil beanie from decoyvoice.com just in case, as counter-protesters tried to break through the police line and found out real quick. It is unfortunate that someone recovering from surgery would hit the ground like that, but the police didn't kick down the door of their recovery room. This person ran behind police lines carrying flags trying to be Mel Gibson in The Patriot. I'm just saying these protests are becoming increasingly more inorganic by the day, as we see this person grinding on the police. And I think I recognize them from the Roe v. Wade protest last year, where liberal activists blocked a freeway, and there they are, dancing. And another protest at a shopping mall, still dancing. Now, I personally don't understand the connection between reproductive rights and the scene from Toy Story where Andy comes back in the room, but Santa Monica PD had to break out the steel gates to stop them. Am I really getting that old now? Because I just don't get it. How does twerking on the police accomplish anything? Because it's not just Los Angeles. They twerk on Philly police. They twerk on Chicago cop cars. And in Kansas City, they even twerk on top of cop detainment attempts. I honestly have no legitimate solution to provide, but if I were to harness all of my SAT prep powers, I'd say it's gotta be the result of decades of life without a father figure. And when they encounter a strong male presence with authority, just exuding masculine energy, they just get sent into a primal National Geographic mating ritual of just mindlessly gyrating their reproductive prowess. Severe weather hits all throughout Europe, as Italy sees rivers of ice flowing through their streets. Greece has mass evacuations due to wildfires, and overpopulation in England has them seeking asylum in sea societies, as the mainstream media urgently warns us that we only have 5 more years, 5.5 years ago.
Here in front of Fearman Slaughterhouse, where 10,000 lives are taken daily.
And what did they think was gonna happen? They say that trucker's taking 10,000 lives daily. Why would he even flinch at taking 10,002? So does it make me a bad person? Eating this meat lover's pizza, watching all these activists risk it all to stop me? In all honesty, yes. But the thing with activism is, you'll never pass their purity test. If no meat ends, they'll move on to fuel. If no fuel wins, they'll move on to plastic. You simply can't appease people with that much free time. But it really makes you wonder, it was only a matter of time before these privileged activists started to clash with each other. Because for some reason, law enforcement has recently seen uselessness as a protected class, as the climate activists now protest the Pride movement. And although they appear to be dressed the same, the parade goers seem to be irate. These climate activists seem to get police protection when they're just bullying random people on the street trying to get to work. But I honestly don't know what happens when the oil activists protest Pride. as on one side you have a movement sponsored by big banks and political interests, and on the other side you have a movement sponsored by big banks and political interests. This is what they want, right? Me shedding awareness of their cause to millions of internet dwellers. But no, the more we see their fatherless antics, the more we don't believe in their movement. And whenever I see clips of this, I open my window and blast the AC, drive all the way home in first gear only, and order delivery from whatever restaurant uses the most styrofoam of the tuna with the most dolphin contents. I don't know, it may very well be a huge problem. I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm also not an idiot. And anybody that wants you to give up your gas stove while they own a boat is literally just testing how dumb you are. In Germany, climate activists continue to glue themselves to the ground in order to cool the earth. And it's difficult for the police to move them, as they act like my cat when it's time to come inside. I never worked the closing shift at the Chinese restaurant, then went straight to my overnight shift at the burger shop, all while making certain that I was ready for my college courses, and thought I should go bike lock my neck to my car to stop traffic. Or maybe I'll bike lock my neck to a tennis court, or possibly bike lock my neck to the gate outside the Capitol. Now some may think those activists' odd obsession with chaining themselves for change isn't quite the same as marching in the street waving flags, but I don't. Neither of these so-called protests will ever actually impact their so-called movements. Bike locking your neck to a net isn't going to cool the earth any more than blocking a McDonald's is going to stop Biden from sending billions of our tax bucket to go buy bombs for battles outside our borders. Maybe that's why the word activism is actually derived from the Latin phrase activity of vanity. Sure, I just made that up right now, but it doesn't make it any less true. You simply won't have the will for all this unemployed behavior unless you have enough free time to fill your day with activity that's purely for social media vanity. And that's what created this generation's next great rivalry, bigger than the Lakers versus the Celtics, more divisive than dog lovers versus Koreans. We now have blue-collar workers versus the bullies of EBT. Just look at this interaction on Twitter that Shoe-on-Head, a left-leaning YouTuber, had online, where someone claims The Sound of Freedom is propaganda for far-right conspiracies. Shoe then asks what parts of the movie have those tinfoil hat theories, and they reply, no, they did not watch the movie. We talk about useful idiots a lot on this channel, but it's always interesting to see one in the wild. They become such a subservient class of serfs that they don't even know why they have to cry about something, they just hear their marching orders and go. Whether it was against the masks, but then for the masks, against Orange Man shots, but then for the shots after the election, or against the police during the riots, but then for the police during the Orange Man riots. And they've been programmed so well throughout all of this, when they're called to cover for trafficking, they don't even blink, they just do it, as they brown nose so hard it's actually spread to their shirts. Because at this point, the best endorsement you can get for a product is outrage from the left. And if you think about it, what would be a better scenario for this channel? If Tim Cass came out and said, watch Decoy Voice, he's great. Or would it actually be a better thing if CNN came out and said, don't listen to Decoy, he's actually Kung Fu-anon. So, although sad, it's always hilarious to me when these hyper-left news outlets accidentally out themselves as bigots. I remember when monkeypox was still getting coverage in the media and people were rushed online to claim that it was racist. But how? It's like when I do videos on crime, unemployed behaviors, or any delinquency done online for clout. I'm commenting on an individual's bad actions, but there's always someone dumb in the replies crying that I'm against an entire people. Me calling out one person doesn't mean I'm calling out an entire race unless you can't tell them apart. Or I can do a commentary video on a bear brazenly stealing from a convenience store. But then you'll see comments of people unironically saying, you never see polar bears doing this, or even, why do your videos only show brown bears doing this? As if it's some moral obligation for me to go out and find other footage for the specific purpose of saying, oh look, a white bird, see, they do it too. And if you think this example is fucking stupid, that's because it is. Nobody in the real world cares about what the person robbing them looks like, they just don't want to get robbed. But somehow the news media stepped in to say, we want to treat the real world like a Netflix series and try to get more equal representation. So if 6 grizzly youths mauled and ate some members of the Rolling Hundreds neighborhood Cubs. There's no national media coverage on that. Not because it's not happening, because it's just more important to them to preserve their narrative. As the media wants you to think that we're all out there against each other, but in reality, most people just want to chill and crack open some kibble with the homies. Now, I would sit here and ponder why these guys are oddly similar, as if Chinese-owned TikTok curated their social media feeds to make them think everything from a specific haircut to specific speech patterns and mannerisms were what to mold their personality after, but I'm not going to try to criticize anybody with a generic appearance for very specific reasons. Because if I come out and say I'm Korean, these activist types will somehow say, oh, you're basically white adjacent, so shut up. But if it comes out that I actually fled North Korea, then my words somehow carry more weight. Unless I finally tell you that I'm Irish, then suddenly my words are worthless, as somehow now I'm the oppressor. But if I mention I'm Hmong, a very oppressed people, F everybody in the chat, because nobody outranks a person that happens to share the DNA with a people that lost a war. Don't you understand? SJWs online treat people the same way sports fans treat football teams. Just because you were #1 in the oppression power rankings yesterday doesn't mean someone won't knock you down tomorrow. And I despise everything about this way of thinking, because whether I'm a fancy Korean, a famine Korean, an Irishman, or among us, if you judge the validity of my words based on what I am, not what I'm saying, that makes you a racist. And somehow they don't even realize the irony. When even Netflix begins to receive criticism for frequently race-swapping their characters for seemingly no reason. The one thing I need to point out is people always seem to complain that these color swaps only seem to go one way, but that's simply not the case. Just look at the Pennsylvania State Police somehow labeling these fine gentlemen as white. The Texas Department of Public Safety seems to do the same with these other white men, and even Virginia sees these very Chinese and Vietnamese names as white. And now that you have a successful Sonic franchise, and a mega hit with the Mario movie, and there's already a phenomenal Pokemon movie, and a rumor that the Star Fox film is finally getting some footing, the single greatest crossover blockbuster since the Avengers is right there begging to be made. They couldn't print more money if they did another pandemic, was nothing short of cinematic magic. But somehow Disney saw this and thought, yeah, if you like that, you'll probably love what looks like Michael Jackson in greenface twerking with possibly the most irrelevant person to the superhero niche. I know this is awful, you know this is awful, and now Disney's accountant knows this is awful. As yes, he's being suspended indefinitely for his attack on Nurkic, but now even Reddit is suggesting that he only goes after white players that outperform him. Yeah, Nurkic is indeed white, but Gobert, the other European center he tried to strangle, seems pretty black to me. And it's true, he also stomped on Sabonis' stomach, who happens to be white, but when he punted a player's coin purse, Steven Adams only appears to be white, but is actually Tongan. So Green's long legacy of lashing out when losing couldn't be more diverse if Netflix recast who his victims were. I can only imagine if the Boston Celtics of the NBA came out and said, we don't know who our next starting forward will be, but we do know he will be Asian. And obviously when I get announced as the next starter, every time I missed a shot or got dunked on, not only would it be a reason for fans to hate me as a worthless diversity hire with the dexterity of a newborn baby panda, but it would also be an indictment on Asians everywhere, as if they specifically needed an Asian for the role and I was the best one available. That's why I think that Kamala Harris is the ultimate insult, as Biden was specifically looking for an African-American female, and the best the Democrats could muster up was a Jamaican Indian woman who they tried to rebrand as black. But it was like they only had Tyler Perry's Madea movies as reference. But what's our borders are, Vice President Kamala Harris have to say.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
It literally sounds like she has her speeches written by ChatGPT AI, then has it Google translated to Yoruba, then has that translated into Arabic, and that translated back into English, because this is what it sounds like to me. And obviously that's somewhat of a joke, but it's still a better explanation that her speech patterns are strategic or even on purpose.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
And it's actually insane to me that they just feel comfortable boasting about their continued ownership of an entire voting bloc based on the color of their skin, because they do the same thing with Asians. I still remember how the Stop Asian Hate movement got shut down once Muhammad Anwar lost his life, because once the media saw it hurt the higher-ranking social justice movement, Stop AAPI suddenly disappeared. I also remember how once Biden got elected in office, the lawsuit against Yale for discriminating against Asians suddenly got shut down. And what did Biden do? Invite the Korean pop group BTS to the White House to speak about Asian American issues, when 6 of them don't even speak English. None of them worry about being attacked in the streets of liberal cities, but somehow they think doing a photo shoot with some guys that can sing and dance is enough to earn my vote. And it's crazy how many times I would see comments from other Asians online saying, how dare you not bow down to our liberal white saviors, and how they see us as a monolith, and how dare we think as individuals. Just because you can't tell us apart from each other doesn't mean we're not allowed to think apart from each other. Because this sounds an awful lot like the shut up and dribble fiasco in the NBA. The mainstream media fawned all over LeBron James and his ability to not only play basketball, but also parrot every single one of the corporate media liberal talking points. But when his former teammate Kyrie Irving started to share opinions that weren't quite approved by his corporate overlords, it was right back to shut up and dribble. And that's what this always comes down to. Lift every voice doesn't mean every voice. It means amplify every voice that agrees with me. And everything else is going to be classified as hatred, banned everywhere, and cut to commercial break. Because our useful idiots are only permitted to listen to official messaging from our corporate sponsors.
Your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of US tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern.
But it just goes to show how Pence has a fundamental misunderstanding of modern-day voters. That's not my concern was trending on Twitter, and his official reaction was, no, you have to listen to this 2-minute video to see what I really meant. Mike, it's gonna be really hard to hype up your voters when your voice sounds like NyQuil washing down an Ambien.
There are a lot of people who say that all of you are part of the homeless industrial complex.
And homelessness lasts 24 hours a day. So that's where we're at.
And what's with these socialist types? Always out there trying to find an issue that they have absolutely nothing to do with, and then shame their local liberals into giving them money, because only then can they actually go out there and magically solve their problem for them. And as ridiculous as this looks, or how that Rosehaven director looks, it's literally nothing new, because their extravagant attire looks exactly like a pimp, except they're not trying to make money off of prostitutes, they're making money off of poor people. And despite the fact that San Francisco similarly has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on shelter, only to find that most homeless reject shelter when offered. So next time some shiny politician tries to convince you, the voter, that they're going to solve some injustice, you just gotta let me pool all our money together, then you can request pieces of it back when you have a good enough reason. Realize that they're not trying to make everybody a home, they're trying to make everybody their hoe. But by seeing how fast the world is escalating into a global conflict, the only upside that I'm starting to see is I'm really starting to notice exactly what my type is. In that Spain beach video, I really admire that girl that, without hesitation, ran to go protect her nation's borders. Where I recently realized how much I like the tenacity of Barstool's Wingstop girl.
All I want is Wingstop! That's hilarious. Why? I'm starving, Swizz! What did you eat today? I ate nothing! Nothing!
Who personified that same glowing red-eyed rage as that bath cat. And to those wondering why I would suddenly gain the newfound appreciation for these hyper-aggressive women, I don't think the average American citizen is ready for an actual physical conflict with whatever this is. He does indeed look asleep.
We are a community that relies on family, supplies, materials, manpower, ready to proceed swiftly for when families are ready. Set in place bureaucratic red tape, such as codes and permits.
Which makes me think, when is the last time we had a genuinely loved by all politician? You probably have to go back to 2016 when a dog won 3 consecutive terms as mayor in Minnesota, and this genuinely brings up a valid concern. Everybody loves a cute dog. He doesn't know what he's doing, so if things go bad, he's just an old dog. Can't blame him. He just goes where his handlers tell him to go, takes naps all day, sniffing people at inappropriate times. How is that any different than what we have right now. And I'm being serious. If tomorrow they replace Biden with an 80-year-old bulldog, I'm not sure anything would change. As in the last 2 years alone, Border Patrol has found over 250 suspects from their watch list attempting to sneak into the US. And seeing how these numbers have already created disasters in Europe, what does our Commander-in-Chief, President Damon Shaw, focus on?
The Junk Fee Prevention Act. Hard to say. Anyway, but all kidding aside, I'm asking Congress to take the action so this makes it a matter of law.
Now, on one hand, it's bad that President Dementia is focusing on the fight against Ticketmaster inflating Taylor Swift tickets, but on the other hand, it's probably for the best. I'd rather him use Bidenomics to destroy concert prices than him give the Taliban more tanks or Iran another $1 billion. Because just like how they have him use the baby stairs to board Air Force One, I just want them to give him the baby phone to stop him from making things worse. Because even I used to have a series on this channel where I tried to translate Bidenese to English, and it was just an unlimited bucket of videos that I could make. But I'm telling you right now, doing that for too long was literally making me dumber. Because if you ever watched any of my old videos of my current live streams, you know I'm a bit of a stutterer and I'm simply not the best public speaker. Fortunately, being Asian, I could always make the excuse of saying English is my second language. If the person asking looks Japanese, I say I speak Cantonese. If they look Chinese, I say I speak Ilocano. And if they just happen to speak both, whatever nerd, I don't need your approval. But the most interesting part of Trump on Tucker was his characterization of Vice President Kamala Harris.
She seems pretty senile too.
She speaks in rhyme. It's weird. It's weird, but she has bad moments. And
in rhyme? What do you?
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do.
And I could never quite put my finger on what Kamala Harris reminded me of, but watching the way they parade her around in this overdone display of who they want you to think she is, only then did I realize she's basically a mascot for diversity and inclusion. Because if Washington, D.C. was a sports franchise, they wouldn't represent the Patriots, the Warriors, or even the Trash Pandas. They would be the DC diversity hires. And let's be honest, Kamala does a pretty good job dancing on the sidelines, not actually helping the team win it all, just reminding everybody their team's identity.
Just for the record, Donald Trump's counter-programming is horrible. I don't think anybody's going to be watching Tucker Carlson on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
But the laugh's on them, as in less than a day, they have over 200 million views, where CNN's 15 million subscriber YouTube channel, their front page and center show from months ago, pulls in Decoy voice numbers and viewership. And I want you to get a good look at all this, CNN. On the internet, we're peers. I don't know, I try not to fall too far off the deep end because I also don't like it when people look too far into things. Like how some people noticed that my t-shirt graphic came out super quickly and seemed to be slightly larger than the mugshot that got posted, or even subtle things that I place in the background, or what I wear. This stuff means nothing. I'm just really into the Los Angeles Dodgers single A farm team, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes. My message has nothing to do with what I'm wearing. So when we see these border towns filled with kids in cages, there's no images of AOC in an all-white suit crying outside the parking lot. And let's be clear here, the amount of just overall suffering due to our issues at the border has only increased. But the corporate media won't portray it that way because they don't care about how it impacts the average person, they only care about how it impacts their pimp. Politician. But sadly, DeSantis, the presidential candidate, has been a disaster. People aren't talking about his policies, they're talking about his heels.
People online have noticed that somehow at the age of 45 he seems to be getting taller. That's when images of his shoes were analyzed online, with some on Twitter claiming that he is wearing heels of up to 4 inches tall.
They're memeing about his feet, and everybody is getting in on it, and it's just sad now. So DeSantis' size will go down like Howard Dean's Bia. Andrew Yang's cream.
Who's next? Get in here!
And a long lineage of political campaigns fizzling out that finally end with just one unfortunate, memorable moment, and others trying to depict this as a winner of the debate.
And I'll say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms.
I'm sorry, Christie is just the most irrelevant man in politics. As this same movement shuts down intersections in deep blue Los Angeles, but somehow managed to do the same in ultra red Arkansas. And what is insanely confusing to me, they block the streets in Texas, But to be fair, it was Austin, Texas. So they've somehow set the precedence of what I call toddler politics, where if they don't get what they want, they're going to throw a fit and sit on the ground, screaming and sobbing to try to get their way. The problem being is the Democrats tried to turn their infancy into their infantry and use that energy to help them get elected in 2020. They looked the other way and not only enabled and encouraged them, but sometimes actually provided funds for their legal defense. But now that those same people don't agree with those same politicians, they may actually inadvertently unify the masses against a warmongering uniparty. Because I went to public school and college in deep blue California, and I specifically recall how relentlessly they try to drill down liberal values into your brain. So how is it that I know so little algebra that it's actually haunting my ancestors, but I can remember each teacher's love for Obama and hatred for Bush? At the end of the day, they'll never be able to rewrite reality. Bidenomics sounds great until you can't afford eggs. Open borders policies sound liberating until Sweden has over 61 no-go zones controlled by criminal gangs. Oh, I'm sorry, they rebranded them as vulnerable areas. So I just want to know, how do I obtain these Harry Potter levels of liberal journalism? Like, if my girlfriend finds another woman in my bed, can I just say, this isn't cheating, I've rebranded it as domestic diversity? And the only reason you don't like her is because she's different than you, and I didn't realize I was dating a MAGA fascist. I don't want to look too far into symbolism, but this really seems to be about servitude, so maybe that's why there's so many self-deprecating demands from the Democrats. As it's not just woo, AOC also seems to be obsessed with their supremacy.
White supremacy.
The emergence of white supremacy. White supremacy is a fact.
With this being her fiance, Kamala Harris seems similar.
The white nationalism.
White supremacy. White supremacist extremist.
As the second gentleman is the same. And peculiarly, even political commentators have this in common.
White nationalist racist diatribe. White supremacy.
But it has to do with white power.
As Don Lemon is married to this man. And again, I'm not critical of people dating whoever they want. Half the girls I've dated weren't Asian, and none of them were this bizarre combination of curly-haired Kirkland brand Korean that can't speak correctly. So I'll never understand why people make it their political stance to ostracize the types of people that they like to sleep with. Although, I do seem to criticize unemployed behavior, and my ideal woman would be unemployed while she raised my children. Oh my god. In Buffalo, New York's bomb cyclone, looting has begun because some are actually using it to steal $500 of cheap liquor, televisions, and a gumball machine. As it looks like the worst storm the country has seen in 50 years has resulted in temperatures lower than Mars, 27 losing their lives, with some people actually being stranded and frozen in their cars. As one man shared his story of frantic knocking at his door, where Insider.com reports that 10 Korean tourists got stranded in the blizzard, where they were just asking for a shovel to get their van out of ditch, but then got invited in, put on couches, sleeping bags, an air mattress, and their spare bedroom, which is a great heartwarming story for the holiday season. But maybe the homeowner was simply playing 5D chess. With all that looting going on, Santa just delivered him 10 rooftop Koreans, and he now has the safest spot in all of New York. Garbage bins are now being used for cigarette theft in New York.
Hey, don't. Hey, ain't nothing you can do, man. Don't do that. Don't do that, man.
And how quickly did this guy go from, you can't do anything about this, I'ma get my strap, to getting pummeled with a pipe in the back of a 7-Eleven for some cigarettes like a cheap lady of the evening. So now that these employees are trying to save themselves from a future of food stamps, they risk actually visiting the only true socialist utopia, filled with free housing, free healthcare, and plenty of minority representation. I'm talking about prison. As this street vendor actually gets attacked and robbed.
Why do you do that to him? Yo, chill. Yo, chill. Yo, no.
So millionaire socialist Twitch streamer Hassan reacts with this.
I despise local media, dude. There you go. How much they exacerbate, like, narratives that you see on Fox News. What role they play in the boomer reactionary pipeline. Local media talking about $3 worth of Doritos
Does he know the profit margins of a food truck or a street vendor in New York City? Does he know the anxiety of going back to a job that you just got attacked at? Absolutely not. And you can tell because he basically mocks the working man being attacked by the mob, saying it's no big deal, and basically saying, okay, boomer, to the people that don't want riots in the streets. And oh my god, that's such a great grift. I feel like millionaire socialist streamers are like the mumble rappers of internet content, where no one exactly understands what the heck they're saying, but the industry does enjoy the useful idiots they create, so they'll always be propped up and pushed to the top of the front page.
Some people are stealing baby formula and like tomatoes and clothes and sometimes even cell phones because they actually need them to survive nowadays.
And I can almost guarantee you that she has never actually worked at a store that people steal from, or has never actually had to stop someone that is forcibly taking what's hers. But somehow, that doesn't stop them from saying they're only stealing diapers and tomatoes. Yes, those diapers just happen to look like designer handbags, and those tomatoes just happen to come inside the packaging of $1,000 power tools. And keep in mind, this TikTok city council candidate is in deep blue Portland complaining about their hyper-left mayor, which goes to show no amount of lawlessness will ever be enough for these people, because when the left says diversity and inclusion, they're talking about what I call Sesame Street diversity, where sure, all the puppets are different colors and come in different shapes, but they're puppets, all saying the same message, written by the same writers that appear diverse, but are actually just tools to echo liberal elite talking points in an unbelievably condescending way.
We want the people who are breaking in the cars to be caught. When people come in to this city, or people who are in this city breaking the cars, they may be breaking into cars that are put out there by the San Francisco Police Department.
But at this point in time, I think most Bay Area criminals see San Francisco cops the same way we see Spirit Halloween cops. As in, I don't think they're actually able to do anything other than trick-or-treat some tax dollars.
Where the agency at? Yeah. Where's the agency at? Where the agency at? Come out! Come the f*** out! Come out!
So if this is the sequel to the 1954 film Seven Samurai, just set in a 7-Eleven, I'm all for it, because nothing annoys me more than what I label the hypothetical hoodlum, where they talk about all the dangerous criminal behavior they would do if we were outside, if you push me first, if they want a fatherless coward that just hopes their scary screaming would make you back down, and no amount of barking in their faces changes the fact that his words don't match his actions. And I kinda wish this was a samurai movie, so at least then we could edit the subtitles so the scene would make more sense. Nope, I wasn't raised by a father that could teach me discipline and respect for my community, and now I'm gonna make it your problem. So here's to an amazing year on YouTube, just hanging out with you and making the best out of a bad situation. So if you enjoyed this compilation of lightly roasting the insanity that is our reality, hopefully I've earned your subscription and quite possibly your support by becoming a Decoy Voice channel member for as low as $2. And if not, that's completely fine because I just appreciate your time. So hopefully you all have a happy New Year's and wishing the best for everybody in 2024.